My name is Evelyn Sterling, and I died on flight FH5769, returning home. Just a minute before the plane crash, I sent my husband, Julian Prescott, a final message. Julian, you're free now? That message never went through. A stark red exclamation mark followed it, message sent, but rejected by the recipient. My husband, Julian Prescott, had blocked me. Winter. Snowflakes fell relentlessly. The plane exploded. My body was ultimately torn to pieces, vanishing from this world like the white snow itself. I thought death was the end. But when I opened my eyes again, I found myself somehow back in the country, back outside the headquarters of my husband Julian Prescott's corporation. I stood there, stunned, as a familiar luxury car pulled up before me. Julian Prescott, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, emerged from the car, surrounded by his entourage. The man, with his sharp brows and star-like eyes set in a cold, handsome face, walked towards me. Julian, the name escaped my lips involuntarily, but Julian didn't respond. He walked straight through my body. His subordinates followed, each one passing through me as if I were invisible. I froze. Looking down, I realized my body was nearly transparent. What is this? A lingering spirit? A bitter smile touched my lips. Just as I thought about leaving, a powerful force pulled me towards Julian Prescott's side. I tried several times to move away, only to discover I couldn't get more than 10 meters away from him. Inside the CEO's office, Special Assistant Marcus Finch wore a concerned expression. Mr. Prescott, it's been over 3 months since Mrs. Prescott said she was going traveling to Mount Crestview. She hasn't returned yet. Should I give her a call? 3 months ago, as a journalist, after signing a life or death waiver and a non-disclosure agreement, I used the pretext of traveling to Mount Crestview. In reality, I went to the border region to go undercover within a criminal organization. Besides a few high-level people at my company, no one knew about this, not even Julian. Just the day before yesterday, I finally obtained the evidence. But on the flight back home, there was an accident. Perhaps to avoid alerting anyone, the news of my plane crash hadn't reached home yet. A self-mocking smile touched my lips, but my heart was filled with bitter sorrow. Julian, if you knew I was dead, you'd surely be happy. No one clinging to you anymore. As soon as the thought crossed my mind, I heard Julian speak to his assistant, Marcus Finch. No need to contact her. His eyes were utterly cold. He added, if she loves traveling so much, let her stay out there forever. Marcus Finch lowered his head, hiding the pity in his eyes. Mr. Prescott, as per your instructions, the documents are ready for your review. He respectfully held up a stack of papers with both hands. Julian reached out, took them, and flipped through them casually. When I saw the document, my mind went blank with a roar. At the top of the page, the words divorce agreement were clearly visible, glaringly sharp, and Julian's next words struck me like lightning. First, Julian asked Marcus Finch, the wedding dress, the hotel, the officiant, is everything arranged? Marcus Finch nodded. All the arrangements for the engagement ceremony plan are complete. Julian approved. Good. Then he announced clearly, then release the announcement. Invite all the prominent figures from Westbridge City's business circles to attend my engagement party with Sylvia tomorrow. Engagement party. Disbelief filled my eyes. We weren't even divorced. And I wasn't even cold in my grave, yet my husband, Julian Prescott, was this desperate to marry another woman the next day. Julian's engagement party was held at the most prestigious venue in Westbridge City, the Grand Excelsior Hotel. Inside, the hotel was magnificent, filled with clinking glasses and mingling guests. Everyone present was from prominent families. People congratulated Julian one after another. Congratulations, Mr. Prescott, on finding new love. Julian stood tall in the center of the banquet hall, dressed in a custom-made Italian suit, nodding slightly, exuding elegance and nobility. I was standing right beside him. Except no one could see me. I mulled over the words people used to congratulate Julian, finding new love. Bitterness welled in my eyes. Just then, a woman with delicate features and a sharp, striking face rushed out from the crowd. It was my best friend, the heiress of the Holloway family, Hazel Holloway. Her clear eyes burned with anger. Julian Prescott, you and Eivelyn aren't divorced, yet how can you get engaged to someone else? Julian glanced at her, a mocking smile playing on his lips. Evelyn Sterling sent you, didn't she? She certainly has a lot of leisure time, traveling out there while sending her little lackey here to scout the situation. You tell her I am marrying Sylvie, finalized. Tell her to get her ass back from Mount Crestview immediately. For the divorce, Hazel's pretty face tightened. Evelyn's been traveling in Mount Crestview for so long, I've sent her messages, and she hasn't replied. She has no idea you're getting engaged to another woman today. Watching my best friend speak up for me, my eyes grew hot. Doesn't know? Julian sneered, his face growing impatient. The Prescott Corporation announcement has been out for a full day and night. She's so good at pretending. It's a shame she's not an actress. Hazel's eyes flashed with even more anger. She was furious. Do you think she's like that little starlet you keep? Evelyn is a leading figure in the news world 6 years ago. As a journalist, she went undercover alone in a criminal organization and rescued quite a few people. How can that actress Sylvia Vance even compare to her? Hearing this, I couldn't help but sigh softly. Hazel, you're so naive. How could I possibly compare to his idealized love, Sylvia Vance, in Julian's heart? Sure enough, the next second, Julian's face was full of amusement. Undercover this, undercover that, wasn't she just a paparazzo? Hazel stared at Julian in disbelief. She wanted to say more, but Julian's patience had run out. He instructed his bodyguards, please escort Miss Holloway out. The bodyguards forcibly removed Hazel from the premises. As Hazel was being led away, she couldn't help but curse him. Julian Prescott, you truly are a heartless, ungrateful bastard. Evelyn was with you for 5 years. Even if you raised a dog for that long, it would have grown attached, a dog. In Westbridge City, this was the first time anyone dared to call Julian Prescott a dog. The expressions of the onlookers varied. And Julian's dark eyes were now filled with ice. He completely lost the mood to continue the engagement and made an excuse to leave. Back in the extended Lincoln sedan, the driver asked respectfully, Mr. Prescott, where to? The airport. Julian then turned to Special Assistant Marcus Finch, who had followed him. Book a flight to Mount Crestview. Marcus Finch was puzzled. Are you going to look for Mrs. Prescott? Julian's cold gaze fell outside the window. I'm going to see just what kind of stunt she's pulling. Westbridge City wasn't far from Mount Crestview. 3 hours later, Julian arrived at the foot of the great statue of Mount Crestview. I had come here with him too. Faint sunlight pierced through my body, yet I cast no shadow on the ground. Listening to the rustling wind, I quietly gazed at the solemnly seated statue, my expression blank. Buddha, shouldn't people disappear after death? Why let this lonely soul linger in this world? A staff member quickly approached Julian, replying nervously, Mr. Prescott, Mrs. Prescott isn't here right now. Perhaps she went traveling somewhere else. The person in charge here, Reese Davies, was a mutual friend of Julian and mine. 3 months ago, to avoid worrying Julian, I had asked Reese to help me cover my tracks. Upon hearing this, Julian couldn't help but say, when she returns, tell her, 10 days from now, be on time for my wedding with Sylvie. 10 days later. Attend the wedding. Sorrow filled my eyes. Julian turned to leave, but as he glanced back, he suddenly froze. His eyes reflected my image, Evelyn Sterling. Julian cried out involuntarily. I was startled too. Did he see me? Soon, his gaze retracted, his handsome brow furrowed deeply, and he subconsciously glanced back at the compassionate great statue. Just then, an old man, shabbily dressed in a worn Taoist robe, grabbed his sleeve. Sir, you are entangled by a lingering attachment. Lingering attachment. Hearing the old man's words, I understood instantly. Wasn't I the lingering attachment he spoke of? Julian had mysophobia and hated being touched by strangers, let alone a dirty old man. The disgust on his face was undisguised. Where did this fraud come from? Get lost. He yanked the old man away. The old man staggered back a step but wasn't angry at all, muttering to himself. Know that the guest beyond the mortal coil is not one who grinds mirrors in the dust. After speaking, he looked at me standing behind Julian. The attachment stems from the benefactor's heart. If you can realize the purity of your true nature, you can transcend. I was taken aback and asked the old man, can you see me? The old man remained silent. I thought everything just now had been my illusion. Beside me, Julian scoffed. I, Julian Prescott, have never believed in ghosts or gods, nor do I have any lingering attachments. If you keep peddling your tricks here, don't blame me for being impolite. Assistant Marcus Finch, standing nearby, knew his boss's temperament. Julian Prescott wasn't one for respecting the old or cherishing the young. He usually did exactly what he said. Marcus Finch quickly pulled the old man away, stuffing a few bills into his hand. The old man took the money, gazed leisurely at the departing figures of the two men and one soul, and uttered only two words. Ill-fated. By the time we returned to Westbridge City, it was already dark. As soon as Julian and I stepped out of the airport, I saw Sylvia Vance standing not far away in an ivory white long dress, her smile pure and sweet. Julian, darling. Sylvia Vance ran towards Julian, linking her arm through his. Watching their intimate gesture, I couldn't help but remember the 5 years of my own marriage to Julian. He didn't like me. He never allowed me to touch him. The only time we were physically intimate was on our wedding day. That day, Sylvia Vance had left in a huff, flying abroad. When Julian entered the bridal suite, he was radiating coldness. Do you have any idea who should be here today? I didn't understand then. Julian, Shut up, Julian roared, cutting me off. You don't deserve to call me that. Didn't you want to be Mrs. Prescott? Julian laughed in extreme anger. I'll grant your wish. The events of our wedding night were still vivid in my memory. I never imagined my first time would be so unbearable. Pulling my thoughts back, I focused again on the loving couple. After getting into the car, Sylvia Vance sat beside Julian, asking worriedly, when we get married and Miss Sterling comes back, she won't make things difficult for me, will she? Make things difficult. Julian's eyes were deep. If you hadn't saved my life when I had that car accident, how would she have ever had the luck to marry me? She's occupied the position of Mrs. Prescott for so many years. It's time she stepped down. Sylvia Vance smiled faintly. It was just your good fortune, Julian darling. Otherwise, when you had that car accident 6 years ago, how could I have happened to pass by and save you? Standing beside them, I froze completely. How could it be Sylvia Vance? It was clearly me who saved Julian back then. For the next few days, I was forced to follow Julian. I watched him prepare for the wedding with eager anticipation. At dinner this evening, Julian glanced at the dishes on the table and casually asked, "Why haven't we had that steamed fish with pine nuts recently?" The butler quickly explained, "That dish was always personally prepared by Madam. Although the recipe was left behind, the preparation is complicated, so the kitchen staff hasn't made it." Previously, due to Julian's irregular eating habits from work, he suffered from chronic stomach pain and couldn't handle rich foods. To ensure he ate nutritiously, I searched everywhere for light yet delicious meat dishes. Especially this steamed fish with pine nuts. The steaming process was complex, and deboning the fish was tedious. Someone without patience couldn't possibly make it well. Julian paused. Then he lowered his eyes and sneered coldly. The great Miss Sterling actually knows how to cook. Throw away all the recipes she left. Even though I was just a soul, a dull ache spread through my heart as if it were real. I looked down at my hand. A red scar on the back was clearly visible, a burn from when I first learned to cook. As the Sterling family's only daughter, I never needed to know how to cook. I only started learning after marrying Julian Prescott. I went through a lot of trouble to master cooking. Coming back to my senses, I looked at Julian again, only to see he had stopped eating and was heading upstairs. Following his steps, I unexpectedly ended up in the room I used to live in. Except for the wedding night. For the 5 years of our marriage, Julian and I had always slept in separate rooms. I couldn't help but whisper to him, "What are you doing in my room?" Previously, Julian only ever entered my room when he was looking for trouble. Julian couldn't hear me, so naturally, he didn't answer. He walked straight to the bookshelf, searched for a while, and finally found a piece of calligraphy. It was an authentic work by Zheng Gong, one of the 8 great prose masters of the Tang and Song dynasties. Just as Julian was about to leave, his gaze suddenly paused at a desk. It was completely clean, my most treasured fountain pen and camera, as well as the Sterling family photo that had always sat on my desk. Were gone. Those 3 items had never left this desk. Because the fountain pen was my father's heirloom, and the camera was a gift from my best friend, Hazel Holloway. And the Sterling family photo hadn't moved from its spot in the 5 years of our marriage. How could they all be gone now? I didn't understand why he was staring blankly at the desktop. Soon, Julian snapped back to reality and left with the calligraphy. The journey took us to the Zenith Lounge. This was the most extravagant club in Westbridge City. Following him inside, I saw the VIP room filled with many scions of wealthy families. Among them was Rhys Davies, our mutual friend. Seeing Julian, Rhys smiled faintly. "Julian, aren't you busy preparing for your second marriage lately? How come you have time to drink with us?" Rhys Davies was handsome and refined, his amber eyes holding a light smile. Julian sat down beside him and casually handed over the calligraphy scroll. "A gift for you." Rhys took it curiously, opened it, and his face lit up with initial joy, quickly followed by confusion. "Isn't this an authentic Zheng? Evelyn went through so much trouble to buy it. If you give it to me, she'll definitely skin me alive. I loved collecting famous calligraphy and paintings." This Zheng piece was something I had painstakingly acquired from a wealthy merchant. Priceless back then, when Rhys wanted to take a look, I was reluctant to even let him touch it. But now, Julian had given it away so easily. Julian was nonchalant. "If you don't want it, throw it away. I want it. Rhys quickly put the scroll away. At that moment, several playboys around Julian chimed in. "Julian, has Evelyn Sterling gone into hiding somewhere, afraid to come back? Why bring her up? That Evelyn Sterling is just a gossip mongering paparazzo. How could she possibly be worthy of Julian? Julian and Miss Sylvia are the true love match. Now that the Sterling family is broke, what does Evelyn Sterling have to compare to Miss Sylvia? That crippled brother of hers. Ha ha ha. After my father passed away, my brother Alistair Sterling and I relied on each other. But a few years ago, my brother, trying to save a little girl, was crushed by a collapsing wall and became permanently disabled. My brother is a hero. But now, these people were mocking him. The sounds of ridicule and mockery pierced my heart. Hearing this, Julian's hand holding the wine glass only paused for a moment before he nonchalantly drained it in one gulp. Beside him, however, Rhys Davies' face turned cold. "Shut up, Evelyn used to be a war correspondent. Her brother single-handedly supported the Sterling family. They're nothing like you pampered playboys." These rich kids had been spoiled since birth, but they were afraid of Rhys Davies. Hearing him speak up for me, they all shut their mouths. Julian looked at Rhys, his dark eyes observing him as he took a sip of wine. "You seem to care a lot about Evelyn Sterling?" Hearing this, Rhys's eyes held an unprecedented seriousness. "I still remember, 4 years ago when you were drunk, how meticulously she took care of you. A debutante like Evelyn, willing to put aside her pride and love only one person so wholeheartedly, is truly rare. If I could marry her." Halfway through, Rhys realized his slip of the tongue and tilted his head back, downing a glass of wine. The atmosphere in the private room instantly fell silent. Julian secretly tightened his grip on the wine glass, his eyes suddenly darkening, an inexplicable irritation rising in his heart. Just then, a waiter came up to Julian. "Mr. Prescott, Mr. Alistair Sterling from the Sterling family is looking for you in the main hall." Hearing this, I couldn't help but be surprised. "Why is brother here?" "Let him come up," Julian replied. Soon after, Alistair Sterling, seated in a wheelchair, was pushed in by an assistant. Seeing my brother, my dim eyes regained their light. "Brother." Even though I was a soul and couldn't shed tears, my eyes felt incredibly sore. I longed to rush over and hug my brother, but now I was just a spirit. All I could do was murmur softly, "Brother." My brother didn't know my situation yet. His expression was cold as he looked at Julian. "I hear Mr. Prescott is planning to marry someone else?" Julian looked at Alistair, his eyes narrowing slightly. "So what if I am?" Alistair looked extremely thin. His distinctly bony hand held out a piece of paper. "Then please sign the divorce agreement, Mr. Prescott, and issue a public apology stating that you wronged my sister." Apology. Julian's face instantly darkened, as if he had heard the world's biggest joke. Alistair's hand clenched into a fist as he accused coldly. "In the 5 years my sister was married to you, she walked on eggshells. People outside called her Mrs. Prescott, but she was treated worse than a servant forced to watch you being affectionate with other women every day. She is the only daughter of the Sterling family, the treasured pearl of the Sterlings, yet she had to lower herself to cook for you. A few years ago, she even nearly lost her life for you. She thought she could warm your heart of stone. But what about you? You're marrying someone else while still married to her. Did you ever once consider her your wife?" Alistair grew more furious as he spoke. Listening to my brother's words, seeing the redness in his eyes, my heart felt like it was being squeezed by a giant hand, causing immense pain. "Brother, don't say any more." Alistair couldn't hear me. He coughed heavily, then held out the divorce agreement again. "Mr. Prescott, sign this. From now on, the Sterling family and the Prescott family will cut ties completely. With no further involvement, you and Evelyn can marry whoever you please in the future, with no connection to each other." The towering anger in Julian's eyes turned into a cold sneer, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Back when you orchestrated the situation, putting me and Evelyn Sterling in the same bed, forcing me to marry her, did you not think of today? Back when Evelyn Sterling used every trick to drive Sylvia abroad, usurping her place, did she not anticipate this outcome? 5 years ago, after getting drunk, I woke up lying next to Julian Prescott. We were then photographed by a crowd of reporters. Because the Sterling and Prescott families had close ties through the older generation, Grandpa Prescott made Julian take responsibility and marry me. I couldn't argue against this, but Julian said I drove Sylvia Vance away. That never happened. 5 years ago, just before Julian and I were to be married, Sylvia Vance found me and said, 'Miss Sterling, just give me 10 million and I'll leave Julian Prescott and stop bothering him.' I gave it to her gladly. I never expected Sylvia Vance would now claim I forced her to leave. Julian continued. Since Evelyn Sterling wanted to marry me so badly, I fulfilled her wish. What do you have to complain about now? Tell me to marry, I marry. Tell me to divorce, I have to divorce. What do you take me, Julian Prescott, for? Don't even think about it." Alistair's face suddenly turned deathly pale. Julian ruthlessly got up and left. I wanted to hug my brother to stay by his side. Brother doesn't know I'm dead yet. If he finds out, what will he do? As Julian walked further away, an intense force, almost tearing my soul apart, forcibly pulled me away. Instantly, I appeared at the entrance of the Zenith Lounge. Whispers from the crowd reached my ears. Was that cripple just now Alistair Sterling from the Sterling family? How dare he demand Julian Prescott divorce his sister and apologize? It's bad enough his own engagement to the Ainsworth heiress was broken off. Now he's meddling in his sister's marriage too. My heart jolted. Brother's engagement was broken? I didn't know at all. If you ask me, Alistair Sterling has more sense than his sister. He knew he was a cripple and unworthy of the top-tier Ainsworth heiress, so he didn't cling. It's only Evelyn Sterling who's shameless. Mr. Prescott is about to marry someone else, and she's still hanging around like a clingy pest. Rhys Davies' cold voice cut in. "Have you all said enough?" The crowd scattered like birds. Julian stood at the entrance, looking up at Rhys Davies as he walked out, his eyes dark. Rhys Davies was known as the most gentle person in their circle, rarely causing trouble. Yet today, he had stood up for me twice. Rhys didn't notice Julian's unusual gaze. He walked over and asked, "Julian, haven't you always wanted to get rid of Evelyn? Why didn't you sign the divorce agreement Alistair brought just now?" A mocking smile played on Julian's lips. "Why? So you can marry her once we're divorced." Rhys's expression froze. "Julian, do you know what you're saying?" As the two faced off, suddenly, Special Assistant Marcus Finch walked quickly towards Julian. "Boss, Elder Prescott wants you to return to the old estate." Elder Prescott lived at the Prescott ancestral home and usually didn't contact Julian. Julian nodded. "Understood." The Prescott ancestral home. I followed Julian inside, all the way to the study, where Elder Prescott sat upright in the center of the room. In my memory, although Elder Prescott was over 70, he was always full of vigor. But now his face was etched with worry, fatigue showing in his eyes. After Julian sat down, he asked, "Grandfather, why did you call me here so late?" Elder Prescott looked up at him, rubbed his temples, and then asked gravely, "What's going on with you and that little starlet? You should have cut ties cleanly with that woman 5 years ago. Why is she still haunting you now?" Hearing this, Julian frowned slightly. "Evelyn Sterling asked you to call me here, didn't she? She really has her methods," he sneered coldly. "To even get you to plead her case, she must have gone to great lengths. Unfortunately, her plan is going to fail. I will marry Sylvie." Hearing this, a complex emotion flashed in Elder Prescott's eyes. He suddenly spoke again. "Julian, have you not gone to Mount Crestview to see Evelyn even once in these 3 months?" I looked up at Grandfather in surprise. Why would Grandfather suddenly bring this up? Does he know something? Julian scoffed contemptuously and retorted, Why should I go see her? I wish she'd just disappear in Mount Crestview. You! Elder Prescott was furious. You've been married for 5 whole years, don't you have even a shred of feeling for Evelyn? Julian sneered again. Feelings. Even if she died right here in front of my eyes, I wouldn't feel a thing hearing this. Elder Prescott's dark pupils filled with boundless anger. Fine, very fine in that case. When she comes back, I'll let you two divorce. I just hope you don't regret it then. Hearing these words, Julian stiffened all over. Soon, he regained his usual nonchalance. Thank you for granting this, grandfather. With that, he turned and left the study. Once he was gone, Elder Prescott's eyes filled with regret. He muttered to himself, Evelyn, grandfather has failed you. I couldn't make Julian take good care of you. I followed Julian all the way back to Prescott Manor. Prescott Manor was the new house Julian and I moved into after marriage. On the way, Julian sat in the car, his face dark the entire time. I sat beside him, somewhat confused. Julian, grandfather has already agreed to let us divorce. Why do you still seem unhappy? Julian's gaze drifted out the window, his expression unreadable to me. Finally, we arrived at Prescott Manor. As Julian got out of the car, he immediately saw the lights on inside the villa. His pupils contracted slightly. He strode quickly towards the villa, pushed open the front door, and saw a slender figure standing inside. He stepped forward and grabbed the woman's hand forcefully. Evelyn Sterling, the woman turned around, revealing a different face. Julian, darling. Sylvia Vance smiled at him. You're back, she then explained. Miss Sterling hasn't returned. I missed you, so I came over to see you. Julian instantly released her hand. Sylvia's hand froze mid-air, her eyes misting over, looking pitiful. Did I come at a bad time? Julian's eyes softened. Of course not. Sylvia reached out and hugged him directly, asking in a low voice. Julian, darling, why did you call out Evelyn Sterling's name just now? You haven't fallen for her, have you? Standing nearby, my breath caught. Then I heard Julian reply. Rest assured, I will never fall for Evelyn Sterling in my entire life. Moonlight cast long shadows, everything was quiet. The two clung together in the living room. I stood alone to the side, feeling utterly out of place. Sylvia finally smiled through her tears. Julian, darling, I learned a new dance. Shall I dance it for you? Julian smiled indulgently. All right. Moonlight streamed in through the window. In the soft light, Sylvia Vance danced gracefully. Julian sat nearby, watching, his eyes full of tenderness. I watched along with him, unconsciously recalling the times after we got married when I would dance in my practice skirt in the dance studio. When Julian saw me, he mocked, You dance so badly, it's a shame you didn't become a comedian. After that, I never wore a dance outfit again, let alone danced. I didn't want to watch their intimate moments anymore. My gaze drifted out the window towards the Sterling family home. Meanwhile, Sylvia danced beautifully, each step fluid and graceful. However, Julian's gaze seemed somewhat distant. After a long while, he finally couldn't help but speak. Sylvie, it's getting late. I'll have someone send you back. Hearing this, Sylvia stopped dancing. She walked over. Can I stay here tonight? A flicker of impatience crossed Julian's eyes. Evelyn Sterling and I aren't divorced yet, after all. If you stay here now, it will affect your reputation. Sylvia's expression changed. Julian, darling, did grandfather forbid you from marrying me? Hearing her mention his grandfather, Julian thought of his grandfather's words and his irritation grew. Sylvia thought she had hit the mark, her voice turning sorrowful. We love each other, what's wrong with that? Why do they all try to stop us from getting married? I just want to be with you forever. Forever. My mind inexplicably recalled the words I spoke when I married Julian years ago. Julian, we'll be together forever, right? Perhaps Julian had forgotten all these things. He said to Sylvia again, Don't overthink it. Our wedding plans won't change because of anyone. After saying this, he had the driver send Sylvia away. Moonlight flowed like water. The night air was cool. I watched Sylvia's departing figure, then looked at Julian returning to the master bedroom to rest. I couldn't help but think of the 3rd year of our marriage. At a party, I accidentally fell into the water. As my consciousness blurred, it was Julian who saved me. In a daze, I clutched a cufflink from Julian's shirt. That cufflink, I treasured it like a precious gem, always keeping it close. After Julian fell asleep, I watched over him for a long time. Sleeping, he looked less sharp, and those thin lips no longer uttered hurtful words. I couldn't help but ask him softly. Back then, you saved me without hesitation. Doesn't that prove you have some feelings for me? Naturally, I received no answer. Only those who are not loved search for proof of love in the smallest details. I didn't know then that the one who saved me wasn't Julian at all. Julian slept restlessly. His brow furrowed from time to time, his forehead covered in fine beads of sweat. I didn't know what was wrong with him. I reached out, wanting to touch him, but my hand passed right through his face. A lump formed in my throat. Just then, Julian suddenly opened his eyes wide and sat up in bed. He had just dreamed that I died, dreamed that I was covered in blood. Dying in a blizzard, Julian couldn't sleep anymore. He dialed Marcus Finch's number. Book a flight to Mount Crestview immediately. I didn't understand, murmuring, "What are you going back to Mount Crestview for?" But I received no response from Julian. I followed Julian onto the plane. When we reached the foot of the great statue of Mount Crestview again, it was just dawn. Today, there weren't many tourists. As Julian walked towards the base of the statue, he saw many people kowtowing before the compassionate figure. They were praying either for their family's safety or for success in their careers. Julian sneered contemptuously. I really don't understand these people. Instead of working hard themselves, they put their faith in feudal superstitions. If praying to gods and Buddhas worked, there wouldn't be any poor people in this place. Hearing this, a staff member couldn't help but explain to him. Mr. Prescott, praying to gods and Buddhas is actually about seeking peace of mind, about praying to oneself. 6 years ago, Miss Sterling also came here. At that time, it seemed, Mr. Prescott, you were hospitalized, hanging by a thread. To pray for your well-being, she kowtowed here for a whole day and night, the staff member sighed. I still remember how Miss Sterling's head was covered in blood back then. At that time, I was just like you, skeptical of gods and ghosts. Miss Sterling told me that people who pray to gods and Buddhas aren't foolish, they just have no other options. The gods and Buddhas are their last hope. Listening to this, Julian merely scoffed. That's the difference between her and Sylvie. Sylvie risked her safety to pull me out of the car, while she only knew how to pray. Standing nearby, I felt an overwhelming sense of failure wash over me. A cold wind passed through my already fragmented soul. It swept away the last trace of warmth I had. 6 years ago, Julian and I weren't married yet. It was I who pulled Julian out of the car, and afterwards, I stayed by his side day and night while he was unconscious. It wasn't until the doctor issued a critical condition notice that, as a last resort, I came to Mount Crestview to pray for the Buddha's blessing. Julian asked the staff member again, "Are you in contact with Evelyn Sterling?" The staff member paused, then had to continue the lie. "Miss Sterling is still traveling outside and hasn't returned." Very well, Julian clenched his fists. It seems she's deliberately avoiding me. Since she doesn't want to be seen, then let's never see each other again. Never see each other again, his words truly became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Julian started walking down the mountain, and I numbly followed him. Behind us, the benevolent face of the great statue seemed to watch us with compassion. Julian's steps suddenly halted. He saw the ragged old man again. The old man had set up a stall with fortune sticks on it. As if guided by fate, Julian picked up a wooden stick. The worst fortune, the message read, disharmony between two houses, endeavors hard to achieve. Worries plague the household, fear of turning askew. The old man recognized Julian at once, his gaze then falling upon me beside him. He slowly spoke, "Sir, someone you cherish is about to leave you. Cherish them well." My eyes were filled with desolation. "Sage, you can see me." Before I could finish, the old man told me meaningfully, "Everything has its own destiny. When the attachment dissolves, you will depart." When the attachment dissolves, I will depart, I vaguely understood. Julian, confused, thought the fraudulent old man was talking to him. "You're peddling your tricks again." The old man wasn't annoyed. He handed Julian a small, exquisite pendant shaped like a wooden fish. Julian refused to take it, telling his assistant Marcus Finch beside him, "Get rid of this charlatan." With that, he strode away quickly. But when Marcus Finch turned back, the old man was nowhere to be seen. Disbelief filled Marcus Finch's eyes. Did I just encounter an immortal? Julian didn't notice that the wooden fish pendant had somehow ended up in his pocket. Back in Westbridge City, Julian didn't go home. These days, he spent most of his time at the company, inside the CEO's office. Julian sat in his office chair, distracted. He called Marcus Finch in. Call Evelyn Sterling. This was the first time Julian had thought of calling me. Perhaps because he had blocked me, he could only ask his assistant to call. Marcus Finch immediately dialed my number, but the call couldn't connect. Boss, Madam's phone is unreachable. Julian's expression darkened further. I knew he was angry again. A phone rang. Julian instinctively looked up at Marcus Finch, but Marcus Finch informed him, "It's Miss Vance calling. She says she can't reach you. She wants you to accompany her to choose her wedding dress for the day after tomorrow." "All right, I understand," Julian replied. Standing nearby, I realized how quickly time had passed. Julian was marrying Sylvia Vance the day after tomorrow after hanging up. Julian took the car to the bridal shop. As soon as he got out, the shop staff immediately gathered around. "Mr. Prescott, Miss Vance has finished her makeup and styling and put on the wedding dress. Please take a look." Julian nodded and walked towards the inner room. "Julian, darling, you're here." Inside, Sylvia Vance stood in a white wedding dress, her face looking beautiful. She asked, slightly shy, "Do I look beautiful?" Julian stared at her for a moment, then replied after a long pause, "Beautiful." And I, watching Sylvia Vance standing beside Julian in her wedding dress, unconsciously remembered my own wedding. At that time, I too wore a snow-white wedding dress, but Julian's face was cold as he told me, "The wedding dress looks ruined on you." Back then, I was flustered. "Then I'll go change." But after I changed out of the dress, I heard Julian say, "The wedding ceremony is canceled." My wedding didn't even have a simple ceremony, let alone Julian accompanying me to try on dresses. I stood at the farthest possible distance from Julian, 10 meters, watching the man who had been so noble and aloof at my wedding now accompanying another woman to try on dresses, showing unprecedented gentleness. I suppose this is what it's like to be with someone you love, I thought. Meanwhile, Sylvia tried on dress after dress. Julian stood watching nearby, but gradually lost patience. He said to Marcus Finch, "Buy all the dresses Sylvie tried on. I have things to do, I'm heading back to the company first." "Yes, sir," Marcus Finch nodded. Julian went outside. Snowflakes drifted down. He stood by the street for a long time before getting into the car. Back at the company. Julian flipped through company proposals and contracts, telling his secretary, "Am I paying you all just to sit around? Trying to fool me with this rubbish? Tell them to redo it. And your perfume is awful and your lipstick makes you look like a ghost." The female secretary, pale-faced after Julian's tirade, nearly burst into tears the moment she left the office. When Marcus Finch returned, she couldn't help asking, "Why has the boss been in such a bad mood lately? Isn't he about to marry the person he likes?" They say happy occasions lift the spirits. But Julian right now was a devil making employee's work. Overtime constantly wasn't enough. He berated people mercilessly. Marcus Finch sighed, shaking his head helplessly. Although Julian could be sharp-tongued, he had always been emotionally stable at work. In the month of preparing for the wedding with Sylvia Vance, he seemed like a changed person, moody and increasingly irritable. Having been married to him for 5 years, I didn't understand what was wrong either. He's finally marrying his idealized love, why isn't he happy? Time ticked by, second by second. Late at night, Julian still hadn't gone home. He sat alone in front of the computer, busy with work, and I still stood beside him. I didn't understand why, knowing Julian was marrying someone else, I still had this lingering attachment, why I hadn't completely faded from this world. The next day, a news alert popped up on Julian's computer. The moment I saw the news, my heart tightened. Westbridge City News female reporter goes undercover in scam compound, cooperates with police to film evidence of criminal gangs' activities. All scam gang members have now been brought back to the country by police. Julian hadn't slept. He immediately summoned Marcus Finch. "Evelyn Sterling works for this station too, right?" Marcus Finch looked and nodded emphatically. "Yes, Madam is also a reporter for Westbridge City News." Hearing this, Julian stared at the news on the screen, a sense of panic inexplicably rising in his heart. And my heart was pounding too. The evidence has been secured by the police, the criminals have been caught. So, soon the news will announce that I succeeded in my undercover mission, but encountered a plane crash on my way back. My throat felt tight. At the same time, I looked down at myself. Half of my body had become almost completely transparent. In that moment, I understood what the old sage meant. When the attachment dissolves, I will also dissolve. My attachment wasn't just Julian, but also whether the evidence I had risked so much for would safely reach the authorities. I saw my colleagues in the news report. They had been on a different flight and returned safely. The weight on my heart finally lifted completely immediately following this. Most of my body became transparent. Marcus Finch then said to Julian, "Boss, you're getting married tomorrow. Why don't you go home and rest today?" But Julian shook his head. "No need." "Has Evelyn Sterling called you back yet?" Julian suddenly asked. Marcus Finch shook his head. "No, understood, you may leave." "Yes, sir." Julian closed his eyes. After a long while, he opened them again, picked up his phone, and removed my contact from his blacklist. I saw him typing. "Evelyn Sterling, even if you don't come back, I will still go through with this wedding." But that message was destined to vanish without a trace. The next day, Julian's wedding proceeded as scheduled. He looked handsome and dashing in a well-tailored black suit. I still hadn't returned. Julian felt inexplicably irritated. He tapped on my user profile picture on his phone. The last message was the one he had sent yesterday. Perhaps out of frustration, Julian took out his phone again and dialed my brother Alistair Sterling's number. "Alistair Sterling, tell your sister to stop playing games and get her ass back here immediately." Standing right beside him, I couldn't help but think, brother probably knows about my death by now. Family should be notified before the news is officially released. Sure enough, Alistair's voice on the other end was hoarse. "Julian Prescott, do you have a heart at all?" "Evelyn. She can't come back, can't come back." Julian scoffed. "Did she break her legs or did she die? Why can't she come back?" "You tell her, if she doesn't show up today, I'll make the Sterling family's life a living hell." After spitting out these harsh words, he hung up. Standing beside him, I felt an unprecedented sense of sorrow and also unprecedented regret. Regret for marrying a man who didn't love me. Time was up. Julian got into the wedding car to pick up Sylvia Vance. His phone rang. It was Elder Prescott. "Julian Prescott, cancel the wedding right now." Julian replied with a cold laugh. "Impossible. Don't you know Evelyn she?" Grandfather hadn't finished speaking. Julian cut him off coldly. "Grandfather wasn't arranging one marriage for me enough. Do you have to arrange a second one too?" Grandfather choked on his words. Julian hung up directly. The wedding car drove through the heavy snow. Julian sent me one last message. "Stop playing games. Sylvie and I will definitely be happy." Happy. I murmured the word, unable to stop myself from asking, "Then what about my happiness?" I recalled every moment with Julian, all filled with pain. A hot tear rolled down my cheek. At the same time, I saw my spirit body gradually dissipate, finally dissolving into nothingness. An inexplicable tightness seized Julian's heart. A pendant slipped from his pocket. He picked it up. It was the wooden fish pendant the old man had given him. As Julian held it, the pendant suddenly cracked in half. He felt a sudden unease just then. The car abruptly slowed down, jolting. Julian frowned in annoyance, about to lash out. The driver said, "Sorry, Mr. Prescott, there's sudden road control ahead, had to slow down." Marcus Finch in the passenger seat also looked out the window, asking involuntarily, "What's that convoy of black cars across from us?" As they got closer, the driver exclaimed, "How could it be a hearse? It's such bad luck for our wedding car to encounter one." Hearing this, Julian inexplicably rolled down the window and looked up. As the two lines of traffic converged, his gaze met that of Alistair Sterling, seated in the lead hearse. Then, his astonished gaze fell upon the black and white funeral portrait Alistair held in his arms. The woman in the black and white photo smiled brightly. It was his wife who had been missing for over 3 months, Evelyn Sterling. "What is going on?" Julian's pupils contracted violently. "Stop the car," he ordered sharply. Marcus Finch, equally stunned upon seeing Evelyn's portrait, still maintained his composure and advised, "Mr. Prescott, we're almost at Miss Vance's house. Today is your wedding day with Miss Vance. You need to consider this carefully." Julian could only pull himself together. He silently reassured himself. It must be another one of Evelyn Sterling's tricks. She drove Sylvia away back then. She desperately doesn't want me marrying someone else. Pulling this stunt with a funeral portrait now is just to ruin the wedding. I won't let her succeed. Just a buffoon, Julian finally concluded. Fortunately, Evelyn Sterling could no longer hear these heart-wrenching words. However, looking at Alistair's shattered, hollow eyes, Julian felt a chill. The entire way to pick up Sylvia Vance, Julian seemed distracted. Sylvia tried to talk to him several times, but he just stared absently out the window, silent. As evening lights twinkled, Julian and Sylvia's wedding ceremony began in the dazzling banquet hall. The hall was opulently decorated, adorned with flowers and jewels, making the entire venue resemble a fairytale world. Elaborately arranged tables displayed a variety of delicious dishes, colorful and dazzling. As the groom of this high society wedding, Julian was utterly distracted. He didn't know why, but his heart ached with panic. Julian dialed Evelyn's best friend Hazel Holloway's number. The phone rang for a long time before it was answered. "Hazel, where on earth is Evelyn Sterling?" he asked gravely. Hazel's voice, thick with fury and grief, lashed out at Julian. "Julian Prescott, how dare you ask me where Evelyn is? You were married to Evelyn for so long, did you ever care about her? I'll tell you where she is. She's right here on this very day, your wedding day. She's about to enter the crematorium furnace." Hazel's words were fragmented by intense emotion. Before Julian could reply, she furiously hung up. Julian stood frozen, unable to distinguish fact from fiction anymore. At that moment, the wedding march began. The guests raised their glasses, celebrating the match made in heaven. Julian, lost and bewildered, was led to the center of the hall by Marcus Finch. Sylvia Vance, in a pristine white wedding gown, walked slowly towards Julian down the flower-strewn aisle, escorted by her father. Her gown was studded with numerous expensive jewels. As she moved gracefully, the diamonds sparkled brilliantly under the lights. Sylvia reached Julian, smiled sweetly at him, looking utterly captivating. Not far away, the officiant was recounting their love story. He spoke eloquently of how Sylvia had been the beauty saving the hero, how Julian had fallen in love at first sight, how they had overcome hardships to be together. Julian's vision blurred. Hallucination-like, only the clear image of Evelyn Sterling faded before him. He could no longer suppress the impulse within him. Turning to Sylvia, he said, "I'm sorry," and rushed out of the venue. Sylvia's smile froze on her lips. She could no longer maintain her composure, shouting at Julian's retreating back, "No, Julian!" The surroundings erupted in an uproar. Sylvia's fingers clenched tightly, her eyes filled with resentment. Julian ran out of the hall and told Marcus Finch, who had followed him, find the location of that hearse immediately. With that, he strode towards the car. Marcus Finch watched him worriedly and gave him an address. Julian immediately sped off. Along the way, his heart pounded like thunder. His hands gripping the steering wheel trembled uncontrollably. Julian reached the destination in a very short time. The setting sun cast a golden glow, but the warm twilight was gradually swallowed by dark clouds. Julian looked at the surroundings decorated with white flowers and black cloth, his heart filled with dread. He looked up towards the center of the funeral hall. White banners fluttered. Alistair Sterling, dressed in black and wearing a white flower, sat there in his wheelchair, holding Evelyn Sterling's pale funeral portrait. Around him were people dressed similarly, all weeping silently. Julian staggered towards the funeral hall. Hazel Holloway was sobbing quietly at the entrance. Seeing Julian approach, she immediately shouted loudly, "What are you doing here? Isn't today the great Mr. Prescott's wedding day? You don't deserve to be here, you're not welcome here." Saying this, she tried to push Julian away. Hazel's brother, Desmond Holloway, held her in his arms. "All right, let him see Evelyn one last time." Hazel could no longer hold back and burst into loud sobs. The Holloway siblings had been childhood friends with Evelyn Sterling. They knew how much Evelyn loved Julian. Julian felt his breathing stop as he stumbled to the center of the hall. In the middle lay a black coffin, lined with white flowers and paper money. Evelyn Sterling's broken body lay within. Seeing this scene, Julian couldn't believe it. After a long moment of shock, he finally choked out a name. Evelyn Sterling, but the person before him could no longer answer. Julian grabbed Alistair in his wheelchair, his eyes blazing. "Wasn't she traveling in Mount Crestview?" "Perfectly fine, how could she die?" Alistair murmured. "Yes, perfectly fine, how could she die?" Alistair didn't know how his sister ended up abroad either. When he received the call from the police telling him Evelyn Sterling was dead, he felt like his world had collapsed. Even now, Alastair couldn't believe that his beloved sister, Evelyn Sterling, whom he had cherished since childhood, was dead. Those who came to offer flowers for Evelyn included her former colleagues who had faced death with her, friends she had known for many years, and children from the orphanage she had once helped. Everyone remained silent in the sorrowful atmosphere until night fell. Finally, Evelyn Sterling's shattered remains were sent to the crematorium. Julian watched, devastated, as the vibrant face from his memory was consumed by scorching flames, turning into dust. Evelyn's voice and smile seemed to linger before his eyes. He couldn't explain it. He was supposed to detest Evelyn Sterling. But now, his heart ached terribly, as if a sharp knife was carving it, draining every drop of blood. Evelyn Sterling's ashes were sealed by Alastair in a ceramic urn decorated with her favorite jasmine flower pattern. Julian said gravely to Alastair, "Give me her ashes. Name your price." Alastair's eyes were vacant. He sneered coldly, "Impossible. I don't want anything. I just want Evelyn. I just want my sister," Julian replied expressionlessly. "Evelyn Sterling and I were not officially divorced. Legally, she is still my wife. These belong to me." Alastair knew Julian's methods. With Julian's power, he had no chance of winning a legal battle. He didn't want his sister to find no peace even after death. He could only agree to split the ashes, half for each family. However, Alastair demanded that Julian immediately dissolve the marital relationship with Evelyn. He had witnessed all the suffering his sister endured because of Julian. Alastair truly didn't want Evelyn to have any connection to this man even after death. Meanwhile, the wedding banquet hall had descended into chaos. Marcus Finch made numerous calls to Julian, none of which were answered. "What kind of drama is the Prescott family pulling? A runaway groom, ha 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 ha? Did you hear? Something seems to have happened with the Sterling family." After Julian left, gossip, ridicule, and mockery filled the air among the guests. Sylvia Vance had made extensive preparations for this high society wedding with Julian. She had leaked the news of their upcoming marriage 2 weeks prior to build anticipation for this wedding of the century. High society weddings usually barred media involvement, but Sylvia had specifically bribed several entertainment reporters to hide among the guests today, purely for the publicity. Now, everything was ruined. Sylvia could ignore the public pressure of being turned into a laughingstock, but losing Julian as her backer was something she absolutely could not afford. Currently, she still didn't know the reason for Julian's departure from the wedding. She could only rely on this incident to make Julian feel guiltier towards her, thereby gaining more compensation and benefits. Sylvia composed herself, took the microphone, and addressed the guests below the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, my apologies. Julian encountered an unexpected situation that requires his attention. On behalf of Julian, I apologize to you all. We have also prepared song and dance performances for today. Please enjoy the entertainment and the food. I hope you will all understand." She finished speaking gracefully. The sounds of mockery below the stage finally subsided, replaced by some applause and praise. Truly a big star, Evelyn Sterling couldn't compare to this elegance. Then, several slender young women immediately took the stage and began to dance gracefully. News of Evelyn Sterling's death spread like wildfire. Thinking that Julian had abandoned the wedding for Evelyn Sterling, Sylvia's eyes filled with venom. She gritted her teeth. "Evelyn Sterling, you won't even rest in peace," the next day. Because Julian and Sylvia's wedding did not proceed smoothly. Videos of Julian running out of the wedding venue spread rampantly online. Under the headline, "Actress and Tycoon's Botched Wedding," the exposure skyrocketed. The Prescott family quickly intervened, controlling the narrative, and the topic's heat gradually subsided. Unable to contact Julian, Sylvia called Marcus Finch. "Assistant Finch, do you know where Julian Darling is? I'm very worried about him. You must tell me when you find him." She had to cling to Julian, this powerful support, no matter what. "Miss Vance, I can't reach Mr. Prescott either. I will inform you when I find him." Marcus Finch's voice was filled with exhaustion. Since Julian walked out of the wedding, he seemed to have vanished. Nobody knew where he was now. A few days later, on an entertainment interview show, the host asked sharply, "Miss Vance, recently the internet was buzzing about your high-profile wedding with the Prescott Corporation's CEO. Our viewers would like to know, for what reason did the groom leave the wedding venue that day?" Sylvia's expression remained flawless, still smiling gracefully. "My husband had some urgent matters to attend to, that's all." Her eyes, however, gradually reddened, making her look pitiful. After the show ended, the wedding incident trended again. Only this time, the direction of public opinion shifted. Netizens commented passionately. "Did anyone else notice Sylvia Vance's eyes were red? Sister looks so beautiful when she cries. My heart is breaking. Seriously though, what could possibly make CEO Prescott abandon such a beautiful bride? I have a friend who works at Prescott Corp. He said there used to be a woman always clinging to Mr. Prescott." The Prescott family's influence was formidable. No media outlet would intentionally seek trouble. Asking about the wedding day events now must have someone manipulating things behind the scenes, but no one delved deeper at the moment. Public opinion simultaneously painted Sylvia Vance as a resilient, wronged victim while attacking the Prescott CEO's irresponsibility. A flood of paid commenters surged online, somehow digging up information about Evelyn Sterling, since Julian had previously been unwilling for Evelyn to use the title of Mrs. Prescott. He had never publicly acknowledged their marital relationship. Evelyn herself had never disclosed her identity as Mrs. Prescott to others. Due to the narrative and netizens' preconceived notions, Evelyn Sterling was instantly labeled the homewrecker. Someone dug deep and found Evelyn Sterling's professional social media account. Netizens, filled with righteous indignation, flooded her comments and private messages with insults. "Shame on you, being a reporter instead of doing your job properly, you become a homewrecker. Homewreckers like you who break up other people's love don't deserve to live. Knowing someone has a partner and still clinging shamelessly, are you that desperate for love? Too bad the CEO isn't interested in you. Look in the mirror, can you even compare to a big star? So cheap, truly disgusting." Alistair and Hazel were furious. They couldn't bear Evelyn being insulted and slandered. Even after her death, they tried to explain online. But it was futile, drowned out by the tidal wave of malicious words online. Inside Cedar Ridge. Cedar Ridge was a villa Julian had bought when he first joined Prescott Corp., took the reins, and gained power. Back then, work was overwhelming, and when stressed, he often escaped to Cedar Ridge for a breather. Not even Elder Prescott knew about this place. Meanwhile, Julian was lying flat on the floor. Several empty wine bottles lay scattered beside him. His eyes were vacant, staring blankly at the white ceiling, lost in thought. His phone lay nearby. It had been ringing incessantly for days, but Julian hadn't answered a single call. He let it chime until the battery died. Julian, usually meticulous and upright, now had a dead look in his eyes, red veins crawling across them, a faint stubble shadowing his lips. Even his tie was pulled loose and messy. Julian closed his eyes. He couldn't sleep. For days, Evelyn Sterling's image had haunted his mind. Ever since seeing Evelyn's body, it was as if all hope and joy had been drained from him. The pain in his heart spread like thick ink, a torrential storm engulfing his entire world. The TV in the room played from morning till night. Listening to the characters speak, Julian felt an inexplicable emptiness. He saw Sylvia's interview, felt a pang of guilt, but couldn't muster the energy to contact her. Julian thought carefully about everything that had happened between him and Evelyn. He should have detested her utterly, but why did his heart ache so much now? Julian let out a deep breath, dimly perceiving his own feelings, yet unwilling to accept or believe them. He thought Evelyn Sterling was clearly in Mount Crestview. How could she suddenly die? Everything happened too quickly, too suspiciously. Julian immediately got up and went out, pondering the truth, determined to figure everything out. Inside the Prescott Corporation building, Marcus Finch saw the incoming call on his phone screen and breathed a sigh of relief. "Mr. Prescott, where are you?" Julian simply said. "I'm at Prescott Manor. Get the car ready. We're leaving for Mount Crestview immediately." Marcus Finch replied, "Understood. Should I inform Miss Vance? She's very worried about you." Julian paused only slightly. "No need." He added, "Also, use whatever means necessary to completely suppress the wedding and online gossip from the past few days. And find out for me who leaked the wedding details." That evening, they arrived at Mount Crestview Airport. Julian, accompanied by Marcus Finch, both tall and elegantly dressed, walked briskly through the airport. Girls passing by were drawn to them, frequently glancing back. Just then, Julian paused slightly, his eyes narrowing. He saw a familiar face. The handsome man not far away was his friend, Rhys Davies. Although Rhys Davies was in charge of the Mount Crestview project, he usually resided in Westbridge City. Yet now he appeared here. Curious, Julian murmured. The two approached Rhys Davies. Julian teased. "Mr. Davies, what are you doing here?" Rhys smirked, retorting, "Aren't you here too?" The runaway groom. Tension crackled between them. Rhys composed himself and said, "You didn't come here because of Evelyn's death, did you? You never treated her well when she was alive. Why bother now that she's dead?" Julian remained silent. Rhys continued, "Don't you know Evelyn is being attacked online, called a homewrecker? With the Prescott family's power, quelling the rumors would be easy. Have you said even one word for her? Don't pretend to be deeply affected in front of me." Resentment seeped into Rhys's tone. Julian frowned upon hearing this. He only knew the wedding incident had fermented online. He hadn't realized Evelyn had become the target of public outrage. He hadn't been online at all these past few days. Julian looked suspiciously at Marcus Finch, who simply gave him a slight nod, confirming it was true. "I'll issue a statement immediately." Before Julian could finish, Rhys, uninterested in further argument, turned and walked away quickly. Watching Rhys's retreating back, Julian felt lost. Marcus Finch reminded him timely, "Mr. Prescott, if we issue a statement, then Miss Vance." Julian froze. What kind of statement? To say Evelyn wasn't the homewrecker? Then what was Sylvia? Julian rubbed his forehead, saying helplessly, "Forget it. Let the statement wait for now." Then he ordered sharply, "Find out immediately when Evelyn Sterling arrived in Mount Crestview, and when she left, Marcus Finch immediately arranged the investigation." Within half a day, they found out that over 3 months ago, Evelyn Sterling had come to Mount Crestview alone, stayed for only 1 day, and then left. The investigation shows Madam stayed at the great statue of Mount Crestview for 1 night and then departed, Marcus Finch reported. And after that, Julian's voice involuntarily rose. Madam went abroad. Her specific flight details were hidden and couldn't be traced. "Hidden?" Julian asked, surprised. Marcus Finch nodded. "Do your best to keep investigating. Inform me immediately if you find anything," Julian said gravely. "Who hid the flight information? What was Evelyn doing abroad? Why did she die?" Julian was completely bewildered, his brow tightly knitted. At the Mount Crestview project base, Rhys Davies was on the phone with someone. "All right, when I get back, let's meet in Westbridge City." Hanging up, Rhys looked solemn. It turned out that 3 months ago, Evelyn Sterling had found Rhys Davies, saying she needed to leave for a while and hoped he could help cover for her by telling others she was vacationing in Mount Crestview. She didn't want others to worry. Rhys had asked her where she was going. Evelyn didn't answer, just citing work reasons. Rhys investigated and found out Evelyn's flight was headed to the Shan State Autonomous Region, that perilous place. Rhys had immediately sealed Evelyn's flight information. Then he rushed back to Westbridge City. Airport surveillance showed another person accompanying her, traveling together. After considerable effort, Rhys found him. Inside Westbridge First Surgical Hospital, a man sat opposite Rhys Davies. A frail man sat on the hospital bed, with Rhys standing nearby. The man was the person Rhys had spoken to on the phone, Evelyn Sterling's colleague Ethan Asher. Ethan Asher and Evelyn Sterling had been partners for many years, working seamlessly together. "Did you go to Shan State for a work assignment? What happened there?" "Evelyn, she..." Rhys voiced his questions, his tone softening with sorrow when mentioning Evelyn. Ethan replied, "Yes, it was a very dangerous assignment. Evelyn was always afraid of worrying you all, so she kept everything hidden." Those baseless rumors online, Evelyn wasn't that kind of person at all. Over the past few days, Ethan had also seen the flood of online abuse. He tried defending Evelyn online, but was also attacked and insulted. He couldn't imagine how helpless Evelyn would have felt facing this storm alone, but she was already dead. Ethan drifted into reminiscence. He began to narrate. Over 3 months ago, the plane landed in the Shan State Autonomous Region. Ethan and Evelyn Sterling, along with others, drove into the city to meet up with other colleagues. Evelyn looked out the car window at the desolate scenery, worried. Ethan, sitting beside her, asked with concern, "Are you okay, Evelyn?" "I'm fine, just a bit tired." Evelyn forced a faint smile, but Julian's image surfaced in her mind. She felt a vague unease, something tugging at her heart, making it hard to breathe. The night before leaving, Evelyn had specifically gone to the great statue of Mount Crestview to pray for a safe journey. When she drew a fortune stick before the Buddha, she drew the worst possible one, signifying misfortune. Seeking plans abroad, delays are advised, lest idle worries stir up strife. Like a bird caught in a net, how long can meetings last? Evelyn stared at the fortune slip for a long time. Then she broke the wooden stick, bowed gracefully to the compassionate Buddha, and turned away. A jolt interrupted Evelyn's drifting thoughts. The car stopped abruptly in front of a shaded building. It was an unremarkable hotel. Evelyn got out of the car, pulling her clothes tighter. Even though most of Myanmar has a tropical monsoon climate, hot year-round. Shan State, located in northern Myanmar, had a chill in the December air. The mission this time was to investigate gang activities in the Shan State region, gathering and filming information and evidence of illegal crimes. Evelyn and Ethan immediately entered the hotel. Disguised as locals, they went undercover in the Shan State urban area. For over a month, everyone came up empty-handed. The entire area seemed calm, like a deep, undisturbed pool of water with no apparent abnormalities. After nightfall, Evelyn and Ethan reviewed their findings. Could the informant's information be wrong? Ethan wondered. Perhaps we should expand the scope of our investigation. Evelyn felt that Shan State wasn't as peaceful as it seemed on the surface. Saying this, Evelyn looked out the window. Outside the clear glass, the cold wind blew wildly. Her gaze traveled north towards a desolate area with higher terrain. A few clusters of houses stood sparsely, looking uninhabited. The next day, at dawn, Evelyn disguised herself and went out to investigate. She walked along the small roads on the edge of town, carefully scanning every building, afraid of missing something. Growl! Just then, Evelyn's stomach protested with hunger. She walked into a breakfast shop, about to order something. Her gaze was suddenly drawn to a huge number of takeaway containers nearby. Inside the back kitchen, the shop owner and employees were packing food into these containers and carrying them out. The owner saw Evelyn looking and watched her warily. Evelyn quickly looked away. She feigned innocence and said in Burmese, "I'm starving, boss. I want a bowl of rice noodles." As Evelyn ate slowly, she secretly pondered. There's something suspicious about this breakfast shop. I wonder if the owner knows anything. Asking directly would surely alert them. After eating, Evelyn hid nearby and observed the shop. She saw the owner drive off with the food deliveries, taking winding routes before disappearing from sight. Evelyn made a mental note and quietly memorized the license plate number. Back at the hotel, Evelyn immediately shared her discovery with her colleagues. One colleague suggested, "We could send a car to follow the breakfast shop owner and see where he goes." Evelyn shook her head. The roads here are narrow and complex. Following too closely risks exposure, following too far risks losing the target. Ethan suggested, "We could secretly plant a tracker on the car and see its destination." Everyone agreed. "The breakfast shop owner saw me this morning. If I go again, it might raise suspicion," Evelyn said. Ultimately, they decided that Ethan and another female colleague, Clara Jenkins, would work together to install the tracker. The next morning, the team set out. The breakfast shop wasn't open yet, so they had to hide nearby. Soon, the owner appeared, driving the delivery vehicle, swaying slightly. Swish! The owner opened the main door and went into the kitchen to get busy. He parked the vehicle by the back door. So, Clara Jenkins entered the shop and started chatting with the owner. "Boss, what kind of filling is in these buns?" "They smell amazing," Clara said in an exaggerated tone. The owner replied coldly, "Pork curry." He watched Clara warily. Meanwhile, Ethan had bypassed the owner's line of sight and reached the back door. He quickly found an inconspicuous spot on the rear of the vehicle, unlikely to fall off, and deftly installed the tracking device. During this time, Clara kept teasing the owner, distracting him. She constantly blocked his view whenever he glanced towards the back door. Once done, Ethan gave Clara an okay gesture. He quickly hid again. Clara breathed a sigh of relief. Afraid the owner might become suspicious, she stayed and ate breakfast before leaving. Everyone immediately returned to the hotel to regroup. Ethan opened the tracking system displaying the location. The computer screen emitted a faint blue glow, reflecting everyone's hopeful faces. At 7 o'clock sharp, the tracked location finally changed. The vehicle's position moved erratically before finally heading towards the Northern Highlands. Just as everyone was thrilled, the red dot on the tracker flickered a few times and disappeared. Someone exclaimed, "What's happening?" Ethan composed himself. Maybe the signal is bad. He tried adjusting it several times, but there was no improvement. Evelyn looked at the screen. There might be a signal jammer in the compound. The general direction is the Northern Highlands of Shan State, but we still need to investigate the exact location. Determination shone in everyone's eyes. The next day, the team of journalists and local police drove north. The further north they went, the rougher the roads became, the landscape more desolate, and settlements scarcer. Sitting in the car, Evelyn rubbed the Sterling family photo and the fountain pen her father had given her before he died. The end of the pen had a recording device, allowing it to be used as a voice recorder. Evelyn, her father's image calling her name, faintly appeared before her eyes. Entering the Northern Highlands, there were no hotels or other places to rest. The team could only find hidden spots to set up tents. In one cluster of buildings, people disguised as patrols occasionally appeared, likely the compound's base. Although the terrain was high, it was remarkably open. Approaching the compound would offer no cover, making detection highly likely. Evelyn and her team felt dejected, stuck in a deadlock. After nightfall, the surroundings were exceptionally quiet, only the sound of the howling wind. Evelyn sat in the car, deep in thought. Just then, the wind carried faint, suppressed whimpers from the compound, very weak. Evelyn listened intently. It sounded like more than one person. She noted down the times the sounds occurred. After several days, she noticed the timing was fairly consistent. Evelyn quickly discussed with the team. If we grasp the pattern of their activities, might we have a chance to get closer? Police personnel paired up and went to different parts of the compound to observe loopholes in their activity schedule. The group didn't drive, cars were too conspicuous and easily spotted. The night before the operation, Ethan felt uneasy. He found his colleagues and said worriedly, "This operation is risky. Everyone needs to be careful." Evelyn's eyes were firm. "Remember the oath we took when we entered this profession?" Frames of memory surfaced in everyone's minds. Uphold integrity and professional duty. Don't become a tool used by others for clicks and deadlines. More important than knowledge are one's ethics and character. Uphold the truth in news. Measure the land beneath our feet with our own steps. Be the voice of the party and the people. News is a career, but also a belief. Driven by responsibility, we move forward, adhere to the original aspiration of media professionals. In places we cannot see, someone is always recording the truth. Though they face death 9 times, they will not regret it. Reporters are always rushing to the front lines of the news. Everyone felt a surge of passion and courage. The next day, under the cover of darkness, the team infiltrated the area around the compound. Upon closer inspection, there were indeed many guards patrolling the perimeter in shifts. For several days, the police and journalists gritted their teeth and remained concealed outside the compound. Finally, they grasped the timing of the guard rotations and vehicle entries and exits. Outside the Shan State compound. "Shift change time, let's go," one guard said, looking exhausted. "The next shift isn't here yet?" Another called out to him. "Doesn't matter, let's go, I'm dead tired." The hesitant guard was pulled away by his companion. Instantly, police officers with weapons swiftly slipped into the compound. The police subdued the gang members one by one, breaching the compound's personnel defenses. Occasional shouts and screams echoed from within. Evelyn, carrying the lightweight camera gifted by her best friend Hazel, followed the police officers onto the scene. Click, click. Evelyn photographed continuously. She documented the signs of activity within the compound and the police operation frame by frame. Just then, Evelyn saw a black figure flash quickly around a corner. Forgetting to follow the police, she quietly trailed the figure to a hidden room deep within the compound. Inside the hidden room, Evelyn hid outside the door, quietly activating the recording function on her father's pen. She saw a man in a dark blue jacket setting fire to a bookshelf before him. The files on the shelf immediately caught fire. The man in the dark blue jacket turned around. A scar ran across his cheek, looking terrifying. Seeing this, Evelyn quickly covered her mouth, afraid of making a sound and revealing herself. The scar-faced man was named Karga, the leader of the gang activities in the Shan State compound. Karga's face was ruthless. He said gravely, "Destroy everything immediately. Tell the higher-ups this base can't be kept." The person in the black shadow immediately replied, "Yes." Karga turned to leave. Evelyn quickly hid behind some clutter. It seemed he planned to retreat and escape. But Evelyn realized at that moment that the evidence was paramount. She had no time to worry about Karga, who had just left. She immediately focused on the black-clad man inside the room. Evelyn took a few photos through the window, but they weren't clear. Several computers were still on in the secret room, their screens glowing. Evelyn knew there must be crucial evidence on those computers. By now, the fire Karga had started was licking at the ceiling of the secret room. The noise outside grew louder. It seemed the police were approaching. The black-clad man muttered to himself, "This fire is so big, it'll probably burn everything soon. If I don't leave now, it'll be too late." As if making up his mind, the man fled hastily before all the documents were destroyed. Seeing this, Evelyn immediately entered the secret room. She took off her outer jacket and used it to vigorously beat out the flames on the documents. Then she quickly photographed the remaining unburnt documents page by page. After finishing, she went to the computers. Evelyn opened the files on the computers one by one. Although Karga hadn't shut down or locked the computers, many files had individual passwords which Evelyn couldn't open. She searched extensively, expending considerable effort. Even in the cold December weather, beads of sweat formed on her forehead. Finally, she found a few video evidence files. Evelyn treasured them and filmed them. She was about to move the computers and files outside, thinking she might be able to preserve the original evidence. Just then, the flames had already reached her side. She snapped back to reality, seeing the room filled with thick smoke, burning debris falling intermittently. Evelyn hugged the camera tightly, coughing as she exited the secret room. Her pretty face was smudged with soot, looking somewhat disheveled. Evelyn carefully made her way towards the police. Just then, a figure in the shadows stared at her menacingly. As she spotted Ethan and her colleagues not far away, a van sped towards her with lightning speed. Evelyn waved at the people ahead, her eyes filled with joy and excitement. The next second, she collapsed in a pool of blood. "Evelyn, Evelyn!" Her colleagues' calls echoed in the cold wind. Ethan was the first to reach Evelyn's side. He gently lifted Evelyn's bleeding body, his eyes full of pain and sorrow. Evelyn looked as if she might shatter at any moment. She spoke painfully, "Ethan, Ethan." The immense pain made it impossible for Evelyn to speak complete sentences. She paused for a long time. "Evidence? Evidence is here." Evelyn pointed to the camera she clutched protectively. Ethan was overcome with grief, tightening his grip on her slender body. He lamented, "Evelyn, it's okay. The doctor will be here soon. This evidence will be your medal." His voice was choked with emotion. "You have to hold on." Evelyn's snowflakes swirled down, falling silently. Evelyn stared blankly at the white flakes falling from the sky. "I'm so tired. I want to go home." A slideshow of memories flashed through her mind. Julian stood before her like a beautiful bubble. He smiled elegantly at Evelyn, gently extending his hand. Evelyn just shook her head slightly, thinking, how could Julian smile at her like that? Evelyn felt dazed, fragments of images flashing rapidly through her mind. A gentle woman, her face blurred, was it the mother she never knew? Her father and brother looking at her lovingly. Hazel and the children she had helped smiling, surrounding her. And Julian, but their figures grew distant, further and further away. Finally, she couldn't see anything. "No," Evelyn gathered her last strength to cry out. Snow fell softly, a rustling sound like fine silk. The ground was soon covered in white. The cold wind swept through everything, carrying suppressed sobs, trembling calls. Just then, gunfire erupted suddenly within the compound. Someone in the shadows had detonated bombs. Ethan immediately shielded Evelyn's body and the camera in her arms. He covered Evelyn with his own body. Suddenly, a bomb exploded near him. The instantaneous force blasted them apart. When he came to, Ethan was also covered in dust, injured all over. He looked at Evelyn and murmured softly, "Evelyn, we got the evidence. We can go home now." The sounds of ambulances and police cars intertwined with the swirling snow. Later, after emergency treatment, Evelyn's injuries improved considerably, while Ethan was seriously injured from shielding her. Everything finally settled. The team boarded a plane back home. Evelyn just wanted to get back to Julian's side faster, so she took an earlier flight alone, FH 5769. Evelyn was filled with joyful anticipation for her return, but unexpectedly, the plane suddenly began to shake violently. The plane crash happened. Everything was sudden. Evelyn thought of the bad fortune stick she drew, murmuring, couldn't escape it after all. In the last minute of her life, she only sent her husband, Julian Prescott, a final message. "Julian, you're free now." That message never went through. A stark red exclamation mark followed it, message sent, but rejected by the recipient. She had long been blocked by Julian Prescott. Snowflakes fell relentlessly. The plane exploded. Evelyn Sterling's body was ultimately consumed by flames, shattering into pieces, vanishing from this world like the white snow itself. Evelyn's camera and pen became evidence brought back by the police. Ethan returned from his memories. After hearing Ethan's account, Rhys Davies' eyes darkened with gravity. He looked up at Ethan, his eyes showing confusion. "Mr. Davies, were you very close with Evelyn?" As far as he knew, Rhys Davies was supposed to be Julian Prescott's friend. It seemed unlikely he would be this concerned about Evelyn Sterling enough to track him down here. Rhys Davies just smiled faintly. "Evelyn and I were acquainted." The tips of his ears inexplicably turned pink. As if remembering something, Rhys added, "Was the previous news about the Westbridge City News female reporter going undercover in the scam compound about Evelyn?" Ethan replied heavily, "It was Evelyn." Knowing the truth about Evelyn Sterling's death, Rhys Davies bid farewell to Ethan and was about to leave the hospital room. Just then, Ethan called out to him, "Mr. Davies, please wait." Ethan said gravely, "This was left behind as evidence. The evidence has now been copied. It belonged to Evelyn. It was supposed to be given to her husband, Julian Prescott." He extended his hand, revealing an exquisite fountain pen. It was the heirloom Evelyn's father had given her. Evelyn always spoke well of her husband around us. It was clear she loved Julian Prescott very much. But from my perspective, that Julian Prescott is no good person. I don't want to see him. After returning home, Ethan had investigated Julian's actions towards Evelyn and felt immense resentment. "I heard you two are friends. I can only entrust this to you, Mr. Davies." Rhys Davies took the pen from Ethan and nodded. He then left the room. Mount Crestview. Julian spent several days investigating in Mount Crestview, but he found nothing, made no progress. Sylvia Vance, however, grew restless, calling Julian countless times every day. Initially, Julian answered out of guilt over the wedding incident, but as the calls increased, he gradually stopped picking up. At this moment, Julian was slumped in an armchair. The phone beside him rang incessantly, grating on his nerves. Julian pressed his lips together tightly in displeasure and answered, "Julian, darling, how much longer are you going to stay in Mount Crestview?" Sylvia's coquettish voice came through the receiver. "Evelyn Sterling is already dead. Is a dead person more important than me now? Didn't you hate her the most?" Her voice carried resentment, yet was delivered in the softest tone. "Since you left on the wedding day, I haven't seen you for so many days. I really miss you." Julian lowered his head, silent, his heart confused. He felt as if he had suddenly lost many things he could never get back. But as the heir to the Prescott family, anything should be easily obtainable for him. It was just the absence of Evelyn Sterling, that insignificant woman. Why did it hurt so much? He couldn't figure out the answer. "I'll be back in a few days, Sylvie. About the wedding, I'm very sorry." After saying this, Julian ruthlessly hung up. Sylvia mentioning Evelyn's name made him feel lost. As Julian stared blankly at the ceiling, Marcus Finch rushed in, interrupting him. Mr. Prescott, look at the news." Quickly, Marcus Finch handed him the laptop. Julian turned his head, his pupils suddenly contracting as he looked at the screen. The computer reported the news about the incident involving Evelyn Sterling and her colleagues at the scam compound. It detailed how she discovered the compound, how she risked filming evidence, how she was hit by the van. Finally, a line in the news stated she had died in the plane crash. Julian was utterly shocked. Memories of Evelyn's gentle and attentive demeanor towards him constantly intertwined and overlapped with the image of the agile and capable woman on the screen. Julian recalled all the hurtful things he had said in the past. An immense wave of regret washed over him. Marcus Finch then clicked on an entertainment news piece published by Veritas News. Heroic journalist viciously slandered online as homewrecker. A collapse of morality or humanity's demise, a headline leaped from the page. It detailed the tangled love triangle involving Sylvia Vance, Julian Prescott, and Evelyn Sterling, along with Evelyn's undercover story. Public opinion instantly reversed. Veritas News was an entertainment media project under Rhys Davies Corporation. After reading, Julian understood. He frowned and instructed, "Book a flight back." Marcus Finch immediately nodded. That evening, the two arrived back in Westbridge City. Julian strode hastily into Rhys Davies' office. "Was it you?" he asked gravely. Rhys Davies smiled playfully, then nodded in admission. Both men knew exactly what was going on. Neither tried to hide it. Was it necessary to go this far for her? Evelyn Sterling is already dead. A hint of anger tinged Julian's voice, uncertain whether it was directed at Evelyn or Rhys. "I don't care what happens to your little lover. I won't let Evelyn suffer unjust slander even after her death." Rhys Davies met Julian's gaze, sparks seeming to fly between them. "Are you angry now because your little lover is being criticized?" Rhys paused. "Or are you angry because I defended Evelyn? Didn't you detest Evelyn Sterling the most, wished she would disappear, now you got your wish? Why do you care so much about her now?" Rhys Davies sneered. As if his thoughts had been exposed, Julian's expression soured. "I didn't want her to die, it's just—" Julian couldn't articulate it. "All right, your excuses are useless on me," Rhys interrupted him. "Evelyn is already dead. This is what she left for you." Saying this, Rhys handed Julian the pen he had been tightly gripping. Julian accepted it, stunned for a long moment. "Please leave, Mr. Prescott. I won't keep you," Rhys said, showing him out. Julian could only leave, inside Prescott Manor. Julian gently opened Evelyn Sterling's pen. As he pressed the button, a recording slowly began to play. "Julian, this mission is very dangerous. I don't even know if I'll make it back safely. I used to have the courage to face any dangerous mission. But since falling in love with you, I often feel uneasy, afraid I won't get another chance to see you. But as a journalist, I must always rush to the front lines of the news. News is my career and also my belief. Do you remember the first time we met?" "Julian," Evelyn's voice was gentle, like a spring breeze. "The first time we met?" Julian murmured. He remembered that time on the luxury cruise ship when he got drunk and ended up having a ridiculous one-night stand with Evelyn Sterling. When they woke up, entertainment reporters were already waiting outside the door, snapping pictures of their compromising situation. Elder Prescott and Evelyn's father were old friends, so afterwards, they decided on a marriage alliance between the two families. Since Evelyn was also a reporter, Julian concluded she had manipulated the situation. Desperate to marry into the Prescott family, resorting to any means. Thinking this, Julian couldn't help but show disdain again. But the image of Evelyn's frightened, pitiful face from that day kept flashing before his eyes. Could there really be more to the story? Julian shook his head frantically, suddenly suspecting he might have wrongly accused her. The pen recording continued. "Actually, the first time we met was during a rainy season when we were 17. You probably don't remember. Back then, I was being bullied by some older girls. They cornered me in the stairwell, pulled my hair, tore at my clothes. Every time I moved, they kicked and hit me. It hurt so much, I even forgot to fight back. I didn't know what I did wrong for them to treat me like that. Back then, I didn't have a mother, and Dad was very busy. I didn't want to cause trouble for anyone. I kept saying sorry, but they wouldn't let me go. At that moment, I thought, if there's a God in this world, could he hear my cry for help and come save me? Then you appeared. It rained so hard that day. While they were bullying me, you descended like a god, kicking them away. You said I was your person." Julian's fingertips caressed the pen. Such a painful and humiliating memory, yet Evelyn's tone was remarkably calm. He stood frozen. A trivial incident, like rescuing a kitten in his memory, was a monumental act of kindness in her eyes. "They never dared to bully me again." "Really, thank you so much, Julian." That day, Julian had simply heard faint whimpering from the stairwell after school. He thought some small animal was trapped and went to investigate out of curiosity. He didn't expect to see several taller girls bullying a frail one. Fueled by youthful indignation, Julian leaped forward and kicked the main bully away. Then he pointed at them and declared, "You dare bully someone who belongs to me, Julian Prescott." Because of the Prescott family name, Julian had quite a reputation at school. Those girls didn't dare provoke him and quickly scattered. Julian helped Evelyn up and then left. Afterwards, he forgot about this minor incident amidst the crowd of life. Who knew that later, these girls started spreading rumors that the Prescott heir bullied classmates. Evelyn had defended Julian to anyone she met back then. But given Julian's playboy reputation and the visible injuries on the taller girl, the rumor persisted for a long time. Later, Evelyn decided to become a journalist. She thought, uphold integrity, adhere to the truth in news, telling everyone the truth is paramount. However, Julian soon transferred abroad, making this memory an insignificant blip for him. About what happened 5 years ago, I'm really sorry. I honestly don't know why I ended up beside you. My consciousness was too hazy that day. I remember I was just there for an interview, and when I woke up, I was next to you. It really wasn't me who orchestrated it. I hope you believe me. I really love you, Julian. Although I don't know why you detest me so much, I respect your choice. Whatever the outcome, wait for me to come back. Please give me some time. I will fulfill your wish with Miss Vance and agree to the divorce. I hope you find happiness." A crackling sound of static, and Evelyn's voice vanished into the air. Julian stared blankly at the pen in his hand. He couldn't help but think about the time he spent with Evelyn, remembering how, after they married, Evelyn managed the Prescott household, cooking solely for him. She loved tending to flowers and plants. Even the Prescott family gardeners thought Evelyn had a talent. Back then, Julian only felt disdain, thinking a woman who only lingered in the kitchen and garden couldn't possibly be attractive. But, remembering every drunken night, the late-night hangover soup, the warm white towel, the honey water by the bedside. Remembering every time his stomach ached, the warm water and medicine placed in his hand. Remembering her interactions with the Prescott family members, everyone's happy smiles. Remembering her always sincere eyes. Julian took a deep breath. The ambiguity of his feelings for Evelyn made him uneasy. Just then, Julian's phone rang abruptly again. Julian recognized the name on the screen and answered, somewhat wearily. Sylvia's voice was agitated, completely devoid of its usual gentle softness. "Julian, darling, the internet is full of people insulting me now. What should I do? When are you coming back to Westbridge? Everyone is cursing me. Lots of brands want to terminate contracts. Are you just going to stand by and watch?" Her tone was accusatory, complaining unhappily about Julian's indifference. Julian rubbed his throbbing temples, realizing he hadn't told her he was already back in Westbridge City. "I'll have Marcus Finch handle it. You should probably stop your activities and performances for the next few days." Sylvia wanted to say more, but Julian cut her off first. "I'll cover the breach of contract fees for you, don't worry." "I'm very busy right now." He hung up. The overwhelming online abuse felt like swords slicing at Sylvia. "So you were the homewrecker all along." "Miss Homewrecker, no wonder CEO Prescott ran away from the wedding. Are you even worthy? Trash attracts trash, scumbag and slut, lock them up together, homewrecker." Sylvia looked at these comments and private messages online, her eyes blazing with fury. She didn't know who had exposed all this, but Julian's attitude told her his heart had already strayed. She had to plan her next move. Inside Prescott Manor, Marcus Finch was reporting to Julian. Market stocks down 15 points, revenue across all departments down 20%. Julian had faint dark circles under his eyes. He asked tiredly, "How is the situation with Sylvie being handled?" "We're already doing extensive comment deletion and control, but..." Marcus Finch hesitated. Julian knew this issue wouldn't be resolved quickly, but for the reputation of the Prescott family and Sylvia. "Buy off some paparazzi to leak scandals about other celebrities first, divert the netizens' attention," Julian ordered. Marcus Finch replied with understanding, "Yes, Mr. Prescott, but currently, products from various Prescott subsidiaries are being boycotted by netizens. Should we issue a statement?" "A statement? State that Sylvia was the homewrecker and had nothing to do with Prescott Corp. State that she destroyed his family?" Julian remained silent. The Prescott business was important, but he didn't want to throw Sylvia to the wolves either. After all, in his heart, Sylvia wasn't just a lover, but also the savior who had rescued him. "Let's leave it like this for now," Julian said resignedly. Sterling Family Ancestral Hall. The sky was as dark as deep water. Evelyn's brother, Alistair Sterling, was placing his sister's funeral portrait next to their parents' photos. He gently held the jasmine-patterned urn containing Evelyn's ashes. "Dad, I failed to take care of Evelyn," Alistair murmured to his father's portrait. The father in the photo still looked kind, his gaze seemingly offering comfort. Just then, someone burst in frantically. Alistair looked up. It was Evelyn's best friend, Hazel Holloway. Alistair composed his sorrowful expression and asked softly, "Miss Holloway, what happened? Why are you in such a panic?" Hazel caught her breath. "Brother Alistair, have you seen the news these past few days?" "No." Since seeing his sister's body, Alistair had been immersed in grief. Seeing the online abuse directed at Evelyn earlier had only made him feel more exhausted. Unable to care about anything else, he just wanted to quietly accompany his departed family members now. Hazel took out her phone, searched, and handed it to him. After reading, Alistair suddenly became agitated. Sunlight shone brightly, scattering the clouds. The news reported Evelyn's innocence and achievements, the truth laid bare. Those netizens who had been blinded finally understood. Alistair smiled with relief. "That's wonderful, the truth is out. I can finally rest easy." Hazel echoed his smile. "Yes, yes," but as they smiled, tears fell again. Thinking of Evelyn's ordeal brought sorrow to anyone. "The weather is so nice today. Let me push you out for a walk, brother Alistair," Hazel suggested positively. Alistair smiled faintly. "All right." Hazel pushed Alistair's wheelchair through Westbridge Plaza, chatting and laughing. Just then, a mocking female voice exploded beside them. "Isn't that the Sterling family cripple?" It was jarringly harsh. They looked at the unwelcome visitor approaching. Alistair's face turned pale, while Hazel's face filled with anger. Recognizing the person before them dressed in luxury brands with an arrogant expression, it was Felicity Ainsworth, the heiress of the Ainsworth family, the woman who had previously broken off her engagement with Alistair. Well, Alistair, have you latched onto the Holloway family now?" "Ha-ha, as if they'd even look at a cripple like you," Felicity Ainsworth's words were hurtful. Alistair pressed his lips together tightly, his face drained of color. "Felicity Ainsworth, you've gone too far. Don't think your fancy clothes make you noble. Your mouth is filthier than a sewer. This smug look on your face is disgusting," Hazel retorted sarcastically. "You," Felicity sneered. "No way, Hazel. Defending him like this, don't tell me you actually have feelings for him, haha. Brother Alistair is a hero for saving someone. He deserves respect. There's nothing wrong with me liking him. He deserves to be liked by all of us," Hazel replied firmly, her eyes resolute. Alistair, the subject of the conversation, felt embarrassed being defended so fiercely by a young woman. The tips of his ears gradually turned pink, and he didn't dare look at Hazel. The onlookers, overhearing the exchange, started pointing fingers at Felicity Ainsworth. Felicity couldn't argue back. Seeing the growing crowd, she prepared to leave resentfully. She threw out a final, "just a cripple," and fled. Alistair spoke his thanks. "Miss Holloway, thank you for speaking up for me." Thinking of his disability, his tone held a hint of bitterness. Hazel scratched her head, remembering what she had just said, feeling a bit embarrassed. She said softly, "Brother Alistair, don't mention it. Evelyn's brother is my brother. Now that Evelyn is gone, I'll take good care of you for her." Alistair's eyes showed a hint of loneliness as he murmured softly, "Just a brother." Hazel didn't quite hear what Alistair said, only sensing he seemed somewhat downcast. She asked, "Brother Alistair, are you all right?" Alistair nodded. "Yes, let's go back, I'm tired." Hearing this, Hazel pushed him back. Prescott Corporation Building. Sylvia Vance, dressed exquisitely, walked gracefully through the main entrance. The receptionist recognized her and hurried forward. "Miss Vance, Mr. Prescott isn't in today. Is there anything?" Sylvia interrupted. "No need to tell Julian, darling. I don't want to disturb him. I'll just go up and take a look around." The receptionist hesitated, her tone conflicted. "But Mr. Prescott's office cannot be entered casually." Sylvia raised an eyebrow, her tone threatening. "Julian and I are together now. Are you suggesting I would harm him?" The receptionist could only signal the security guard to let her pass. Sylvia took the elevator up, walked down the long corridor, and arrived at Julian Prescott's CEO office. Because of her status, the Prescott employees along the way treated her with utmost respect. Only after she turned and walked away did the employees start whispering, "Is that the homewrecker? Keep your voice down, she's still a big star." "What big star? Isn't she just a universally despised pariah now?" "Ha ha ha, true. Am I the only one who thinks Mr. Prescott is a scumbag? But Mr. Prescott is really handsome." Sylvia peeked around the corner, confirmed no one was watching, and walked straight in. She moved furtively around Julian's office, searching for something. In a stack of documents on the desk, she finally found what she was looking for. Just as Sylvia picked up the document she needed, she seemed to have another thought. She took out her phone and photographed the document's contents page by page, then carefully placed the document back exactly where it was. A smug, cunning smile touched her lips as she thought, "This way, Julian won't find out for a while." Sylvia then left the Prescott Corporation building. The receptionist watched her retreating figure, feeling uneasy. She nervously called Special Assistant Marcus Finch. "Assistant Finch, Miss Vance was just here." Marcus Finch sensed her tone and asked, "What happened? Was Miss Vance looking for Mr. Prescott?" The receptionist quickly replied, "I told her Mr. Prescott wasn't in, but she went upstairs anyway. I checked the surveillance and found she went into Mr. Prescott's office." "I'm worried," Marcus Finch asked. "How long did Miss Vance stay?" She thought for a moment. "About half an hour." "All right, I understand. It's fine, you can get back to work," the assistant replied gravely. After hanging up, Marcus Finch also felt puzzled. If Julian wasn't there, what was Sylvia Vance doing in his office? But he had a vague sense of foreboding. Meanwhile, he was on a business trip with Julian out of town. After finishing a project meeting, Marcus Finch requested leave from Julian. "Mr. Prescott, I have some personal matters to attend to. I need to return to Westbridge first." Julian looked at his long-serving assistant and nodded in agreement. Marcus Finch thanked him and turned to leave. Julian's voice floated softly from behind him, "After finishing the Kingston project, take a good long vacation to rest." "Yes, Mr. Prescott," Marcus Finch replied, his voice filled with gratitude. The Kingston project was a major initiative for Prescott Corp's international trade interface, currently contested by several companies. After Marcus Finch left, Julian sat alone in the vast conference room, his mind blank. Julian rubbed the wooden fish pendant the sage had given him. Although it was cracked in two, touching it inexplicably brought a sense of peace. These days, Julian had been working non-stop, immersing himself in work as if that could fill the growing emptiness inside him. Just then, Julian's phone suddenly rang. The caller ID showed Elder Prescott. The elder ordered, "Julian, come back to the old estate." Julian didn't ask questions, simply agreeing, "Yes, grandfather." 3 days later, after finishing the project, Julian returned to the Prescott ancestral home. Elder Prescott sat like an old statue on the leather sofa, with Julian beside him. Elder Prescott slowly began, "I know everything about Evelyn's situation." "That child Eivelyn. It's such a pity." He paused, then added, "Grandfather knows you like that woman from the Vance family, but there are some truths you need to know." He handed Julian a video file. Julian, initially indifferent, pressed play. After a short while, his pupils constricted violently, and he froze. The video contained surveillance footage from the road and hospital on the day of Julian's car accident, helpfully time-stamped. The video showed that after Julian's car collided with an oncoming vehicle, the front of his car quickly burst into flames. Shortly after, a familiar face appeared on screen. It was Evelyn Sterling. Evelyn ignored the danger, opened the burning car door, and used all her strength to pull Julian from the trapped driver's seat. She had just carried Julian to the roadside and put him down when the car exploded with a loud bang. Just as the ambulance arrived, she collapsed from exhaustion. Julian was bewildered. Although he had lost consciousness due to the accident, he clearly remembered seeing Sylvia Vance's face amidst the flames. He couldn't have mistaken her. The surveillance video continued playing. Just 10 seconds later, Sylvia Vance appeared. She approached Julian just as the ambulance arrived. And so everything made sense. Inside the Prescott ancestral home, a low, pained groan escaped Julian. How could this happen? He had the chance to investigate the car accident back then, but he trusted Sylvia's story too much. Plus, Evelyn had used the excuse of traveling abroad at the time, disappeared for a long while, and never mentioned the incident. Over time, Julian came to believe Sylvia had saved him. The video continued playing. Outside the ICU ward, every day and night while Julian lay unconscious, Evelyn Sterling quietly kept watch outside the door. Regret reddened Julian's eyes. He murmured, "I was wrong. I wronged her so badly." Elder Prescott gently stroked the cane in his hand and said apologetically, "Evelyn was a good child. Unfortunately, our Prescott family wasn't blessed enough. After she passed, only young Alistair is left in the Sterling family. Look after him." Then Elder Prescott, leaning on his cane, slowly hobbled away, leaving Julian stunned, lost in endless regret. Night fell, starlight dim. Julian sat alone drinking in a private room at a Westbridge city bar. The colorful lights illuminated the desolation on his face. Numerous empty bottles lay scattered beside him. He had carelessly tossed his suit jacket aside. His expensive white shirt was stained with alcohol in several places, resembling blooming, garish flowers. Even so, his finely sculpted, handsome face was breathtakingly beautiful. Julian had drunk a lot, intoxication clouding his mind. In a daze, he saw that lovely, innocent face again. Evelyn Sterling. He whispered her name. "You're back. You came back to see me? I was wrong. I was really wrong." Julian clutched a bottle, speaking intermittently. "I missed you. I really miss you so much." But besides the loud bar music, there was no reply. "Are you angry? Are you angry at me, so you'll never come back?" Julian murmured, his voice choked. He raised a bottle of strong liquor high, the red liquid flowing down into his throat, instantly sharp and bitter. Julian felt his stomach burning fiercely and thought blankly that if Evelyn were here, she would surely feel sorry for him. But the girl who had adored him was discarded by his own hands. Just then, the door was kicked open with a bang. Marcus Finch and Rhys Davies entered. Marcus Finch had tracked Julian's spending and quickly found him at this bar with Rhys. Marcus Finch knew he couldn't persuade Julian alone. Rhys Davies frowned deeply at the scene. He blamed Julian somewhat for Evelyn, but they had been friends for years, and he couldn't bear to see Julian so broken. "Get out," Julian growled lowly. Rhys remained unmoved, saying coldly, "When Evelyn was alive, you made her life difficult. Now that she's dead, what's the point of this act? Nobody wants to see this scumbag realizes his mistake drama," Rhys said sharply. Julian didn't speak. Marcus Finch stepped forward, carefully persuading, "Mr. Prescott, Madam surely wouldn't want to see you like this either. The past is gone. Let's look forward. Prescott Corp still has so many employees who need you. The Kingston project is imminent. We need to pull ourselves together." Julian seemed slightly moved by this. Rhys Davies spoke coldly, "Don't you want to make your little lover pay for what she did to Evelyn?" A fierce glint flashed in Julian's eyes. He then said to Marcus Finch, "Investigate Sylvia Vance's background. Everything she's done, from the past until now, I want to know every single detail." Marcus Finch breathed a sigh of relief and immediately replied, "Yes, Mr. Prescott." Marcus Finch quickly left, closing the door behind him. Inside the private room, the two men sat in silence. Rhys Davies sat down with Julian. Each lost in their own thoughts, they raised their glasses and drank until dawn. Prescott Corporation Building, CEO's office. The bidding for the Kingston project was fast approaching. A rival company spread rumors. The Kingston project is already in the bag that day. Julian received a private call from the rival company. The caller said, "Julian Prescott, I advise you not to waste your energy. We know all of Prescott Corp's cards now." Julian scoffed, "With your amateurish tricks? What makes you think you can compete with Prescott Corp? Just a bunch of clowns." The caller retorted angrily, "Don't push your luck, just wait for the bidding day." He laughed loudly. "We'll see who the real clown is." Julian ruthlessly hung up and immediately summoned Marcus Finch. "Are the project proposal and bidding preparations ready?" he asked. Marcus Finch nodded. "Everything is ready, Mr. Prescott." A cold light glinted in Julian's eyes. "The opposition has been provoking us repeatedly these past few days. They must have planned something against us. Find media outlets to push the old wedding and homewrecker scandals back into the spotlight. Use the opportunity to lower Prescott Corp's stock value with the bad press." Marcus Finch immediately understood. "Yes, Mr. Prescott. The clarification statement and evidence are prepared. They will be released through the media immediately after the bid. Julian nodded in satisfaction, his fingertips constantly rubbing the cracked wooden fish pendant. Inside a private apartment, Sylvia Vance was resting, idly scrolling through her phone. She frowned unhappily. Why is this trashy entertainment media digging up old news again? But then she thought, isn't bad press for Prescott Corp more beneficial to my plan right before the bid? A smile spread across her face. On the day of the bid, entrepreneurs gathered. After the project presentation, the procurement unit began the bidding process. Each company carefully evaluated its bottom line and the opponent's psychological price points. Representatives delivered their bid documents and proposals one by one, but Prescott Corp held back. The rival company members sneered openly. Caught up in scandals now, Julian Prescott, you've finally stumbled, ha. Why even bother bidding? Just go home early, beg me, and I might consider acquiring Prescott Corp. Julian remained silent, just smiling faintly. In the final minutes, Marcus Finch submitted the bid price and project proposal. The rival company head, Victor Bishop, snorted coldly. It's useless even if you bid. I know Prescott's bottom line. Julian just raised an eyebrow coolly. Oh, really? Then you better watch closely, lest you end up with nothing. After careful review by the organizers, the bid evaluation committee slowly walked onto the stage. Victor Bishop's triumphant smile instantly froze, his jaw dropped. The large screen displayed the winner. Prescott Corporation. Julian smiled faintly, slowly stood up, and faced the rival company members at the next table, saying word by word, "Buffoons." Victor Bishop was furious, spitting, "Damn it, that dead bitch dared to lie to me." As Julian, Marcus Finch, and other Prescott staff left, they were surrounded by numerous reporters outside. Camera flashes flickered constantly, microphones thrust towards Julian one after another. "Mr. Prescott, we hear the rival company's bid was extremely close to yours. How did you manage to win? What is your relationship with Miss Vance? Could you say a few words?" "Mr. Prescott." Julian maintained his usual cold, noble demeanor, saying nothing, just striding forward briskly. Marcus Finch paused briefly. "Prescott Corp will issue a statement later. We have work to attend to now. Please understand." The group immediately got into their cars and left. During the scandal's spread, Julian had arranged for large quantities of Prescott stock to be bought at low prices. Now, with the winning bid, the market soared and Prescott stock skyrocketed. At home, Sylvia Vance saw the news of Prescott's win and flew into a rage. She fumed. "How could this happen? I clearly gave them photos of the original Prescott bid documents. Where did things go wrong?" Just then, her phone rang. It was Victor Bishop, the rival company head. The ringing persisted, showing no sign of stopping. Sylvia had to answer. She was immediately met with a torrent of abuse. "You bitch, how dare you lie to me? Give me back the 80 million immediately. Every single cent, or else I'll make you pay." She tried to defend herself. "Mr. Bishop, the photos of the bid were taken by me personally in Julian Prescott's office. There couldn't have been a mistake. Something must have gone wrong on your end for Julian to win," Victor Bishop sneered. "Prescott's bid was exactly 1 point lower than the bid in your photos. Only you know what happened. Cut the crap, give me back my money immediately. And I haven't even started on the damages for losing the bid because of you." After hanging up, Sylvia collapsed onto the floor like a deflated balloon. Prescott Corporation statement, press conference. Reporters scrambled to ask questions. "Mr. Prescott, is the statement clarifying Prescott Corp's relationship with Miss Sylvia Vance true? Does the previously rumored wedding between you and Miss Vance hold any validity? Were you divorced from the late Mrs. Evelyn Sterling? Prescott stock surged after winning the bid. Can you comment? Was there manipulation involved?" "Mr. Prescott." Their questions nearly overwhelmed Julian. Julian cleared his throat, speaking clearly, "Please be patient, everyone. I will answer each question." The venue instantly quieted. "Mrs. Evelyn Sterling and I were not divorced. We remained legally married. Years ago, Sylvia Vance deceived me, claiming to be my lifesaver. Consequently, I took care of her generously, who knew she would exploit my gratitude, demanding I hold a wedding ceremony with her. The wedding matter holds no validity. To my wife, I am deeply sorry. The previous wedding scandal was also orchestrated by Sylvia Vance herself." As Julian spoke, the large screen displayed chat logs and photos of Sylvia's dealings with paparazzi. For this bid, Sylvia Vance further snuck into my office and stole the bid proposal. I will pursue legal action against her for theft of commercial secrets. With that, Julian turned and left the conference hall. The large screen began playing the video footage of Sylvia searching through Julian's office. The audience gasped, wanting to ask more, but Julian was already gone. It turned out that on the day of the out-of-town trip, after Marcus Finch returned to Westbridge, he immediately checked Julian's office but found nothing unusual. Yet, Marcus Finch felt a persistent unease. Julian's office had always been equipped with micro cameras, accessible only by Julian, and Sylvia's relationship with Julian made him hesitant to voice suspicion. After much thought, Marcus Finch still called Julian, who was still away. "Mr. Prescott, Miss Vance visited your office," Marcus Finch began hesitantly. Julian paused. Was she looking for me about something? Unclear. She stayed inside for quite a while. "I'm worried," Marcus Finch trailed off. "Do you suspect she would do something?" "Sylvie wouldn't," Julian said curtly, feeling Marcus Finch was overstepping. "Mr. Prescott, the Kingston project proposal is in your office. With the bid approaching, I'm just concerned about potential issues. The proposal is the result of our hard work. Mr. Prescott, forgive my impertinence, but I need access to your office camera footage." "Enough," Julian interrupted sharply. Marcus Finch persisted. "If I've wronged Miss Vance, I will certainly apologize to her. But this is critical, Before he could finish, Julian hung up. Marcus Finch stared at his phone screen and sighed. On the other end, Julian, still out of town, also felt slightly stunned holding his phone. "Sylvie." He whispered the name almost inaudibly. Ultimately, Julian gave the camera access password to Marcus Finch. He thought, let him look, it won't hurt. It will prove Sylvia's innocence and clear up any suspicion. Reality, however, hit Julian hard. When he received the video from Marcus Finch, he felt struck by lightning. The footage showed Sylvia rummaging through his office, taking pictures. Julian couldn't understand why she would do such a thing. He had no time for sentimentality. He immediately instructed Marcus Finch and his team to modify the bid price and related documents. Later, this video became crucial evidence. Online, Sylvia Vance faced relentless condemnation, truly becoming a pariah. Inside Westbridge City Airport, the moment Sylvia received the $80 million from Victor Bishop, she had already bought a plane ticket, preparing to flee. But she never expected Julian to know she had stolen the confidential Kingston project documents. Wearing a mask and sunglasses, fully disguised, Sylvia carried her suitcase towards security check. Just then, she was stopped by security personnel. Police officers arrived immediately. Sylvia panicked, trying to push past the security guards, screaming, "It wasn't me, let me go," but it was futile. What awaited her was the judgment of the law. Prescott Corporation's CEO's office. Julian received the news of Sylvia Vance's arrest and imprisonment without a change in expression. He gently rubbed the wooden fish pendant, remembering the first time he saw Sylvia. That day, when he woke from his coma, the first thing he saw was her smiling sweetly at him. Sylvia had whispered, "You're finally awake." Afterwards, Sylvia told him she had saved him. Julian had been instantly smitten. He couldn't help but think, the angelic girl from his memory, stripped of her disguise, possessed the heart of a viper. He recalled how Sylvia had been just an unknown, ordinary girl back then. It was Julian who invested in entertainment companies, using resources to elevate her step by step. Years ago, under Julian's arrangement, Sylvia participated in a talent show. At that time, Julian crafted a ditzy beauty persona for her, making her somewhat famous. She didn't need any skills, just acting cute and pouting. Through clever editing, countless viewers bought into it. The members grouped with Sylvia suffered terribly. Most of the screen time focused on her, leaving other members with minimal exposure. She was unskilled in singing and dancing, often dragging down her teammates, leading to their elimination. Realizing they were just stepping stones for Sylvia, members quit one after another, only to be targeted by her fans online, accused of isolating her, bullying her. Later, Sylvia debuted with immense popularity. Most other contestants, however, were cyberbullied to the point where they couldn't live normally. After gaining fame, she frequently bullied other minor actors and staff members. All of this, Julian hadn't cared about back then. At that time, he was deeply involved with Sylvia, blinded by love. Rhys Davies had tried to advise him several times, hinting at Sylvia's poor character and ethics. Julian dismissed it all. Sylvie is just a simple, kind girl. Others are framing her. Don't listen to rumors, Rhys, Julian had said. Julian, don't overdo it. She's reached a level beyond her actual abilities now, Rhys had replied helplessly. The girl I love deserves the best in the world. Julian had been stubbornly infatuated back then. Marcus Finch approached, interrupting Julian's foolish reminiscence. He reported to Julian, "Mr. Prescott, during the investigation into Miss Vance, we discovered her connection to the incident 5 years ago as well." Julian's eyes narrowed slightly. Oh. At that time, the Prescott family did not accept Sylvia marrying Julian, creating many obstacles. So she devised a scheme, wanting to use public opinion to force the Prescott family's hand. Julian got extremely drunk on the luxury cruise ship. Sylvia specifically arranged for someone to take Julian to a room she had booked. Fearing failure and exposure, she also prepared a cup of knockout drugs and a cup of aphrodisiac. However, by chance, the knockout drug was accidentally drunk by Evelyn Sterling, who was there for an interview, while Sylvia drank the aphrodisiac herself. Evelyn stumbled into Julian's unlocked room. Sylvia, flushed and aroused, was led away by some unknown man nearby. The paparazzi she had prepared burst through the door early the next morning, catching Julian and Evelyn sleeping together. Sylvia, under the effect of the aphrodisiac, spent the night with that man, not finishing until the next evening. And back then, she deliberately went abroad just as Julian and Evelyn were getting married, framing Evelyn for forcing her away. In reality, Sylvia had secretly married a wealthy tycoon abroad. Before leaving, she even demanded $10 million from Evelyn. After the tycoon died, she failed to secure any inheritance. So she returned home in disgrace to entangle Julian again. Marcus Finch recounted the entire story. After hearing it, Julian clenched his fists furiously. So that's how it was. That bitch, I'll make her life in prison a living hell. Julian used some connections to ensure Sylvia's time in prison was far from comfortable. She repeatedly requested to see Julian, but he ignored all her pleas. Inside Prescott Manor. After everything settled, a sense of emptiness and confusion constantly lingered in Julian's heart. He gazed intently at the wooden box containing Evelyn Sterling's ashes, murmuring blankly, "Evelyn Sterling, I never knew. I had already fallen in love with you long ago. So all along, I was just lying to myself." Julian suddenly realized the true jewel had been beside him all along, yet he had mistaken fish eyes for pearls. Julian closed his eyes, thinking about everything that happened between him and Evelyn, gradually drifting into sleep. In his dream, everything was white, surrounded by ruins. It was an unfamiliar place, seemingly very cold. Julian walked slowly through the dreamscape and saw a figure enveloped in snow. He walked towards the figure. The snow-white silhouette suddenly turned around. It was Evelyn Sterling. Julian exclaimed in surprise, "Evelyn Sterling." The Evelyn in his dream smiled at him. Julian couldn't suppress his inner joy. He suddenly stepped forward, gently embracing Evelyn. "I really missed you so much," Julian murmured softly. He closed his eyes contentedly, as if holding a precious treasure, holding the entire world in his arms. But in an instant, Evelyn's appearance changed. The lovely face of the Evelyn in his arms turned grayish, blood flowing steadily from beneath her, clearly gravely injured. He frantically tried to staunch Evelyn's wounds, but it was useless. The crimson blood gradually stained his clothes. Julian watched helplessly as Evelyn grew paler and paler, his fingertips trembling as he reached out to touch her cheek. The phantom image he longed for day and night gradually dissipated in the dream. Only Julian's suppressed voice echoed, "Evelyn Sterling, don't go. Evelyn!" The white dream world plunged into darkness. Suddenly, a voice in the dream called out, "Julian Prescott, Julian Prescott." Julian stirred slightly from his grief, only to see the ragged old sage. "How did you appear here?" Julian asked, bewildered. The old sage had a faint smile on his face, replying enigmatically, "There are reasons.